Hey everybody, welcome back to Record-ology. We're going back into the world of DACs today. I've been like hyper obsessed with DACs. It's something I've sort of discovered in the last couple of months. Something hiding in plain sight was this cool technology that I've used, since I ever listened to my first digital audio device. Just didn't know what and how it worked. And now, knowing a bit more, I'm having fun kind of swapping them out, trying different kinds, and really seeing if it makes a difference. It's kind of like playing with preamps, with turntables, how you can kind of mix and match and find one that has a good sound signature, and how do they work, and how do they improve things versus built-in ones. Very similar in the world of DACs. So I've got a year 2000 era 5-disc Sony CD changer with a 1-bit pulse DAC that Sony developed in the mid to late 90s. And the 1-bit DAC is a Delta Sigma DAC that I grew up with, and you probably did too if you were of a similar age. Panasonic's MASH was another 1-bit DAC system. It was just a prolific DAC that superseded the old 16-bit DACs of the 80s. So now, 25 years later, DAC technology has continued to evolve. And now we have advanced multi-bit Delta Sigma DACs, and I'm very excited to see how this DAC technology improves or not the sound of my 25-year-old CD changer. You're not going to want to miss this. Okay, so I'm actually filming this days in advance of when I normally would do this video because I need to spend some time with this device. This is the Fosi Audio K7 desktop DAC, and I'm relatively new to DACs. Like, I've been using them and had a very, basic understanding of what they were for many, many years, decades really. But I didn't really realize until recently how they have evolved and why, as somebody like you and me that's into audio, would really appreciate and benefit from understanding how they work and why obtaining new ones and, how they play a part in our overall hi-fi enthusiasm. Basically, to put it bluntly, any digital device that you're hearing sound out of has to have a DAC, because we can't hear digital sound. We can only hear analog sound, so it requires a digital to analog converter at some point. We've talked about that, but the way that that's done and the sound quality coming out of DACs is much better now. A great way to look at it is think of it like a phono preamp on a record player versus a built-in one. A built-in phono preamp will get the job done. And for many, many people, it's totally fine, totally acceptable. But if you want to take it to the next level and kind of mix and match and play around with external ones, you know what I mean? You could choose sound profiles or manufacturers or types that suit your interest and needs, and that's fun. So that's the way it is with this as well. Just think of it as like a digital phono preamp in a way. So although this is kind of on the back end, this is converting the digital into analog sound. Okay, so we are met with a lot of specifications. I am not going to go through all of this. I do want to point out that this uses the AKM chipset versus the ESS that we have listened to on previous devices. This is a Delta Sigma DAC, so it's not a 16-bit ladder DAC. And want to get into that, and I have a plan to do so on the show here. But this is going to be in the same class as what we've looked at previously. So very, very cool. There's a lot of information in here. It's actually a full color booklet here with different languages, of course. So let's take a look and see what we have here. So here is an audio cable. It's interesting. It's a TRS with dual ends. Hopefully that's coming across on camera. One's got green segments separating the bands and one's got red. So I'm not 100% sure what this is for yet, but we'll soon find out. And on the other end, it is a female receptacle. Setting that aside, we've got an antenna here with the BNC. This does receive Bluetooth, as many DACs that are multi-purpose DACs. This is a headphone amplifier and DAC, so it needs an antenna there for that. We have a power cord, as we can see right here, And it does also have this power brick, and we have a very nice braided USB cable here. Let me untie this here because there's something unique about this that I want to show you. This actually features an adapter built into the cap. It goes from USB-C to USB-A. That's a pretty nifty way to do it, which is really cool. And then it's USB-C on that side, and it is braided, as we said before. And then, of course, we have the device itself. Here's the big reveal. Ah, look at this. I love how Fosi is doubling down on the orange as their signature color. And this is the device. So, we're going to take a closer look. Okay, so here is the device. It's pretty compact, as you can see. And this is a cast aluminum body. It's got good heft to it. The form factor here is one thing that drew me to this model, because it is a desktop DAC. So this is not designed necessarily, although you could, it's not designed to like go in your like main entertainment center across the room, over by your TV and speakers and all that stuff. This is designed to live on the desk with you, where you can kind of look top down. You can see the form factor. It is slanted, and it really lends itself to that. So we've got two knobs here. These are machined aluminum knobs. This one is stepped. It's also a button, a micro switch. This one as well is also stepped. And then we've got 5 buttons along here. This is the power / UAC, input select, output select, a bypass button, and the tone / mic button. And then if we look on the front here, we have a microphone jack, a PO jack, and a balanced jack. So this will be the headphone output. This will be a 4.4 millimeter balanced output. Turning it around onto the reverse, we have RCA outputs. That's obviously your analog outputs. The connector for the antenna. We have a coax in. So if you want to connect your digital audio device via coax, you can do that, or via the optical in. That's my method of choice. Basically, the difference is you're sending digital bitstream data. With a coax, you're sending electrical impulses. With an optical, you are sending optical impulses that are then converted. And I think that's really cool. Now, some people say that the coax is a better way to do it. And then you've also got USB-C. A lot of gamers use this. So for gamers that want an elevated audio experience, like you can connect this to your PS5, I believe, and go that route. 12-volt power supply, and that's really it for the back panel. This is a little bit stripped down from what a full-size DAC may have in terms of connectivity. You don't see XLRs and stuff like that. But, for most people, myself included, this will do the trick. I've got a very specific use case in mind. So what I'm thinking for this device is, if you remember, I have that awesome Sony 5-disc changer. And I think it's a CDP-CE345, if I remember right. We'll look at it here in a minute, because I'll show you exactly where it's going, and I'll show it to you after it's been installed. But that has an old 90s era 1-bit DAC, which is the DAC I grew up with. That's the signature DAC of a Sony Discman, of any Sony CD player in the 90s. If you had a Panasonic, which had the MASH DAC, it was also a 1-bit type of DAC. And 1-bit DAC is the technology that is sort of the Delta Sigma grandfather. It's sort of the ancestor of what is now Delta Sigma technology, which is what this uses, but this is a much more advanced implementation of that technology. So a 1-bit DAC sounds good, it sounds fine. There's a certain noise level, a certain hiss that I never really noticed as a kid, especially compared to cassette, but as a teenager, I should say. But, listening to it now compared to higher end equipment, I'm like, well, there's a little more hiss there than I remember. And maybe it's not quite as dynamic as some of the newer stuff. This will help us because that CD player, and many do, have an optical output. So we can bypass the built-in DAC. You guessed it, put our own DAC in. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to connect the fiber optic cable from the Sony CD changer to this unit, and then connect these audio cables into the speakers, bypassing the old 1-bit DAC, breathing new life into that old CD player. Okay, so we got the antenna connected. We've got the power connected as well. There is an LED indicator on the brick showing you that there is power. Also, what this cable does is it allows you to connect the red to the microphone jack, the green to the headphone jack at the same time, and then plug in a cable like a TRRS, like Apple headphones or something with a microphone band. So it's a TRRS instead of the TRS. And that allows you to take advantage of the microphone jack and the headphone jack at the same time. So that's kind of cool as well. Now this device is pretty fully functioned. It'll do a lot more than I need it to do, at least for this use case. Down the road, I may come up with more ideas, but let's start by turning it on. We're gonna short press the power button, and we've got this nice Fosi audio logo. It's kind of a small screen. It's fine to the naked eye here. On camera, it looks more minuscule than it really is. So if I start by changing inputs, we go to SBC. Input is blue, and this is Bluetooth, and it tries to pair. That makes sense. Then we go to the optical input, which is what I'll be using. And then we keep going. It goes to the coax, which we talked about, and then back to USB. Those are the input modes. Now there are UAC options as well. Pressing and holding turns it off. But if you quick press, which I was trying to do, the power button, it's also the UAC controller. So that gives you some microphone controls as well. And I'm not sure if it'll do anything while I'm connected. Oh, interesting. So that toggles from PCM to 44.1, which is what it's looking for on USB. So that's pretty interesting as well. I wonder if I go over to optical and tap that as well. No. Okay, so it will, I assume, down the road do that. Output, we've got a couple different options. Headphone and line. Literally a couple different options, which is what we were talking about. Now, this is very, very interesting. This actually has some bass and treble controls, which are buried in the menu system a little bit. So if I go over to this tone/mic switch and I tap on tone/mic, it will bring up briefly a bass adjust, which I can go up or down, either plus or minus. Let's see, the variables goes plus or minus 12, I think. Let's see if it goes down. Yep, plus or minus 12. Then you can zero it out. Tapping it again goes to treble, and you can do the same thing. So some basic, looks like treble goes -6 to +6. Maybe saying, well, I don't want it to color the sound at all. So what do I do then? Well, you just hit the bypass button, and now it keeps the integrity and the EQ of the original signal, which I think is probably the way I would like to go. Turning off all the lights, you can see the screen is the only part that is illuminated. I think it would have been cool if the knobs, when you turn them, kind of illuminated, at least temporarily, along the path there. But as you can see, that's not the case. There's also the capability to adjust microphone volume to the connected microphone, to mute or unmute that. We talked about this, using that cable as an adapter to a TRRS. And other functionality is described very well in here. It's a very well laid out manual. But essentially, I need to get my digital signal from my CD player into my speakers with this higher end DAC using this AKM chip. By the way, from what I understand, it's a single AKM chip. I know some use dual chipsets. This is a single chip for the DAC stage. Probably the DAC and output stage are all on that AKM chip. But I've never heard an AKM chip, so I'm excited. So the next step is I'm going to show you where this is going in my setup. Welcome to my very messy rack here. This is the device in question. This is my beautiful Sony 5-disc changer. This is the CE345. It works flawlessly, and it's got an optical output. Currently, as you can see, I've got some stuff living on top of it, 8 tracks and some mini discs and things. So I'm thinking about possibly putting it up there. And I've got an idea. I'm kind of limited on inputs. You can see one of my switches there. I think I'm going to route the analog out using the built-in DAC into the mini disc, analog in, because that's one of the sources that's already set up. And then obviously the DAC itself's analog input will be going into the switch as well. That will allow me to be able to do an A/B comparison where I'll be able to switch back and forth and listen to the built-in DAC as well as the new DAC. So now I just got to find a place for this stuff. So, all right, let's see how it goes. Okay, I cleared out a spot here on my shelf. You can see how few 8 tracks I really have. But that will hold them. That cleared off enough space. Still have some stuff stacked up there, but I think this will give us the room we need. Okay, we have success. The device has a home. It's all connected now. Obviously, I'm just using the optical input. I'm bypassing the EQ, and the CD player is connected that way. Also, I do have the analog connected out of the Sony, so I'm using the 1-bit DAC as well. But instead of routing it through the mini disc, I forgot the radio there, the radio CD player unit that you see in the middle of the screen. That's actually routed through there right now. So that input is taken up. So instead, I have an RCA cable feeding out of the analog of the Sony up to my other switch. So here's my other switch. And by the way, those thermal peel and stick labels are starting to curl up on this type of textured plastic. Still working fine on the dividers. Anyway, so the input you have there is one of the turntables. That's going to be the CD player, so I'll have to swap those out. But once I get that connected, I'll be able to switch between the two inputs and really hear what the DAC versus the new DAC versus the old DAC sounds like. Now I need to spend a few days living with this thing and give it a thorough listen and comparison to the 1-bit DAC that it's replacing. I'll let you know my thoughts. It's $200, $199, so is it worth it? Are you really getting $200 worth of added benefit based off of sound quality improvements over the original DAC? Time will tell. So the next clip will be me in a few days. Okay, it is now me of the future here a couple of days later. Here are my thoughts. It does make a noticeable difference. What you hear is a little bit wider sound stage, a little bit brighter, crisper, cleaner, more defined image, and a little bit deeper bass. And I was very careful to make sure that the volumes were, identical and that wasn't influencing things. Because if something's a little louder, it's going to sound better just by default. So I wanted to make sure those volume levels on both outputs were identical. And I listened over my Fluence AI61 powered speakers, and that's a bit of a limitation. That's because these powered speakers, like all powered speakers, have a DSP, a digital signal processor. Now, the DSP circuit in these speakers is going to try to correct, smooth out, and refine audio on its own. So some of the differences between the built-in Sony DAC and this new DAC from Fosi would be mitigated and sort of reduced as the DSP sort of corrects and makes its little minute changes. That being said, even listening through the DSP on these speakers, I could hear a difference. Was it a massive difference that was like mind-boggling and shocking? Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is night and day. No, it was not. And again, I've never listened to the AKM chip until now. That's the DAC chip in this Fosi DAC. I've never heard it. I know it has a warm, what they call, I think, a velvet sound signature. It's very musical. That's a very nebulous term. What does that mean? But I definitely heard it. It just seemed like the 1-bit in comparison was duller. Just a teensy tiny bit, a little more boxed in. Not boxed in, because it wasn't boxy sounding, but a little bit more closed in, a little bit less wide soundstage, and a little bit duller. And the dullness is so minute in comparison that if you weren't doing an A/B test where you were switching back and forth real quick, I doubt you would even notice. This DAC showed me how good the 1-bit DACs of the 90s really were, because even though it's been 25 years since that CD player came out, the amount of difference is still very, very minute. That 90s 1-bit technology gets you almost all the way there, and with some EQ, you could probably emulate the sound of this DAC very, very closely. That being said, given the choice between the two, I will go to the DAC because it does sound just a hair better. Now, is it $200 better? That's a tough one to say, because unless $200 just doesn't mean anything to you, you need to consider if the investment is worth the payoff. It's not a huge, crazy difference. Like I said, it is a tiny refinement, a tiny refinement. If I was using passive speakers with a different amplifier, the case may be different. I may notice, and in fact, according to ChatGPT, I would notice a more significant difference if I use passive speakers and a more standard amplifier than using these AI61 powered speakers. I also listened extensively on my headphones. It's a very formidable headphone amplifier in its own right, the Fosi. So I connected these beautiful new headphones. These are the AER 105s from Meze Audio. And I thought I liked the 99 Classics. And then I put these on and I was just absolutely blown away. And I've just been listening all day the last couple of days to the new DAC, and it's crisp. It's like refined. I've been kind of excited to listen to some of my old CDs that I haven't heard in many years again through this new system to really hear what it can bring out. And I was amazed. I thought to myself, well, you're only going to notice something in modern recordings because I listen to a lot of old stuff. Like right now, this is my current listen. I'm listening to an old On the Road soundtrack with Bob Hope, Bing Crosby, and Dorothy Lamour. And it's lo-fi. It's a lo-fi thing. But I've noticed that with well remastered old releases, I can still hear the difference there. So it does peel back a layer of dullness, is what I keep thinking of, a layer of dullness. And it just brightens it up, just adds a little bit more crisp. It feels, and I used the analogy when I did the previous DAC review, where it used the ESS chips, dual ESS chips, that it was like going from high def to 4K. And that it was like, I think I said a 7 to 9% improvement. I would say that the improvement I experienced in this case was slightly less. I would say in the range of 1 to 2% improvement. But it was still noticeable. You absolutely could hear the difference.
You're watching Record-ology.
All right, my friends, and that's going to do it. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I do. If you like this, there's more DACs on the way. I know it's ridiculous, but I just love this so much. And like I've said before, the channel can only last as long as it has, and then some, hopefully, because of the fact that I have to be passionate about what I'm talking about. If I'm just, presenting something that I don't have any interest in, then, I could never keep doing this as long as I've done it. So I can't believe we've done it as long as we have. So, especially knowing me, because my, my interests change with the wind. Right now, I'm really into DAC, so I'm trying to apply that into what we're doing here. So yeah, this is a cool one. A thumbs up. Again, not a huge difference, but a measurable one. And if you're looking for one, this form factor kind of does it for you. You like AKM chips, the price point, etc. Definitely a thumbs up on this. Check it out. Link down below as well. And I'm going to keep testing and presenting more DACs to you. And hopefully we can find the very best of the very best. I love this one. I think this is very cool. I'm going to keep using it in my setup for now. So I want to hear from you as always. What DAC do you use if you use a separate one? Or if you're just connecting straight to your device, what is that device? Let me know down in the comments below. My friends, I want to remind you, we've got all new merch. We've got 45 adapters and Seeburg adapters. We've got all kinds of cool stuff and huge surprises coming your way. I just had a phone call. Actually, it was a text. I had a text from a company that we are partnering with on a very exciting thing we've never done before. I cannot wait. I should have said thing in hand within 2 weeks. Fingers crossed. And of course, I'm going to share it with you. Some really, really cool stuff. There may be a giveaway involved as well. My friends, that's going to do it for today. So happy record hunting, and we'll see you next time.